After the rally race, Caleb placed the champion ring on Jessica's ring finger. The large screen zoomed in on him as he lowered his head and kissed her. Then, Caleb announced that Jessica would be his new navigator. The cheering at the racetrack was deafening, but in my ears, I heard his pledge to me echoing inappropriately, "You're my one and only, Maya, I'll only marry you." This time, I didn't make a scene. I cut up the wedding dress I'd just bought and moved out of the apartment that very night. His buddies bet that I wouldn't stay angry for more than a week. Caleb laughed coldly, "She'll be back crying in less than 3 days. But he didn't know I had put together a new team. I wasn't coming back ever again. As I walked past the lounge, a crowd was celebrating wildly. I was about to turn and leave through the exit when Caleb stopped me. "Maya, Jess is back." His voice was cold. "Starting today, Jess is my navigator." Although I was mentally prepared, I still froze for a moment hearing his words. There needs to be an extremely high level of trust between a navigator and a racer. He had partnered with his previous navigator for years, and he just replaced him that easily? Seeing my silence, Caleb continued, "She doesn't like other women hanging around me. From now on, you don't need to be involved in either my racing or my private life." The team had been together for 7 years since it was formed. Every sponsorship and endorsement he had was brought in by me. This funding gave him the best resources, built his aura as a star athlete, and made him the legend of 3 consecutive championships. Besides, who on the team didn't know I'd been with Caleb since I was 18? My eyes reddened, and I sharply looked up at him. He turned his head, threw a debit card at me, and said coldly, "There's $8,800 in it, consider it compensation for you." 7 years of Arella. Tie-in-ship, only worth $8,800? I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Caleb frowned impatiently. He glanced at Jessica, who was standing far away, then lowered his voice, "Promoting a couple is pretty common, you know? The brand requires me to be single. Can't you just go along with it? Besides, Jess's dad is the team investor now. Didn't you used to say you'd do anything for me?" He took my hand and gently shook it, just like he always did when he needed something from me. I don't know when it started, but "I'd do anything for him" seemed to have become the secret to our love. That year, one of his female fans was harassed by a sponsor, and he impulsively pushed the sponsor. I drank 10 bottles of liquor/spirits for him to smooth things over. The next day I was hospitalized with a bleeding ulcer, and he complained about why a woman like me had to be so reckless. Just 2 months ago, he was suspended for a serious foul. I ran around appealing everywhere, and he was able to get his suspension lifted early. The day Caleb returned, he held me and cried like a child. He choked out repeatedly that I was the woman he loved the most, the only woman he truly cherished. People change, though. If he had just honestly admitted he didn't love me anymore, I would have respected his candor. But no, he wanted his cake and to eat it too. Did he still want to be a good guy? After a few seconds, I acted like I couldn't resist his nagging, and reluctantly said, all right, you're making my head spin." Seeing me give in after being coaxed like before, Caleb secretly sighed in relief. "Maya, actually, you just need to avoid appearing with me in public. I'll come to your apartment tonight." As soon as he finished speaking, Jessica walked in, surrounded by a few girls. "Why is she still hanging around here?" "Exactly. Online they say she's the Ace's lapdog, sticking around as the team ass. Isn't, you can't even get rid of her." They deliberately pointed and talked loudly about me. Everyone there was one of Caleb's buddies, no one spoke up for me. They all wore expressions of anticipation, waiting to see me make a fool of myself. Jessica looked around, unable to hide the smug look in her eyes, and walked towards Caleb and me. "Caleb's endorsement brand will be here for an interview soon. Maya, maybe you should step out." She extended her right hand, gesturing towards the exit. The champion ring on her finger flashed before my eyes as she moved her hand, as if showing off. Just last night, Caleb had confidently promised to propose to me with the champion ring and give me a grand wedding. This scene felt familiar, and I found it utterly ridiculous. Last year, Caleb booked 2 tickets for a luxury cruise ship. He said he wanted to take me to see the sunrise over the sea and chase playful dolphins. However, while I was excitedly packing my luggage, he left early. And the one who boarded the cruise ship with him was Jessica. Jessica was Caleb's ex-girlfriend, and his forbidden topic. I had a big fight with him about it. But how could I explain my feelings? He just thought I was being dramatic. I shouldn't have had any expectations for his words anymore. Not wanting anyone to see my reddened eyes, I turned my head and looked out the window. Caleb said unhurriedly, "Just go. Jess is moving into my house tonight. Pack your things ahead of time and move out." At this, everyone burst into laughter. I looked at Caleb indifferently and turned to walk quickly towards the exit. Outside, I took out my phone and sent a message. "David, see you at the new team in 3 days. David is my partner and racer for the new team I'm building. I'd seen him test drive. He's good, very talented." Right after I sent the message, my phone rang. David's surprised voice came through. "That's great, Maya. You finally came around. Caleb is arrogant and reckless. Something bad will happen sooner or later." He kept chattering on the phone when a voice called out from behind me. "Wait, Maya, Caleb asked me to bring you an umbrella. It's raining too hard." The team's mechanic stopped me as I walked towards the exit. The weather in Baywood in the summer changes instantly. One moment it was blazing sun, the next it was a downpour. I hung up the phone. Through the lounge window, I saw Jessica straddling Caleb's lap, their foreheads touching intimately. The sounds of cheering and yelling drowned out the downpour outside. I declined the umbrella the mechanic offered me. Caleb was always like this. One moment he would say hurtful things, the next he could casually act affectionate towards me. A flicker of annoyance flashed in my eyes, and I walked into the heavy rain alone. When I got back to the house, Caleb was already home. "Where have you been? Didn't I tell you to come back early and pack your things?" As soon as I opened the door, Caleb's cold, accusing voice greeted me. Seeing me completely drenched, he froze for a few seconds, then grabbed the towel lying on the sofa. "I swear you're completely stupid now, you don't even know how to call a cab." "Caleb, I forgot to get a towel." A sweet voice/coy demeanor interrupted him. Jessica walked out of the bathroom barefoot. She was wearing Caleb's white shirt, her hair dripping wet. Caleb's hand holding the towel instantly changed direction. He gently wrapped the towel around Jessica's hair, scolding her with a smile for always forgetting things. My gaze swept over the white shirt. It was the one I had specially ordered for him last month. I remembered how he had looked disgusted back then, saying the style was hideous. He also said his buddies all laughed at him for having a housekeeper/someone who mothers him as a girlfriend. Thinking of my heart constricted. I silently walked towards the office, preparing to retrieve the keys to my apartment. As I passed Jessica, she suddenly called out to me. Maya, I just found this in the room." In her open palm lay a small silver locket with an inscription. This was the birthday gift Caleb gave me, and our token of love. Jessica had already gone overseas back then. Caleb and a few of his buddies who loved racing came to Baywood to form a team. Everything was just starting out, the locket was just a cheap trinket. Caleb said, "You're my one and only, Maya, I'll only marry you." I treasured it like gold, unwilling to wear it, keeping it in the dressing table drawer in a presentation box. Looking away, I said calmly, "You can have it if you like, and the presentation box too." Jessica seemed flustered and quickly explained, I didn't mean it like that." Saying this, she clumsily tried to shove the locket back at me. I blocked her hand, and she conveniently pressed her face against mine. Slap! I slapped her across the face. A strange silence fell over the room. Then Caleb's face changed dramatically, and he yelled at me, "Maya, what the hell is wrong with you? What's with the spoiled tantrum? It's just a broken locket, isn't it?" A cold, indifferent smile suddenly appeared on his lips. He took the locket from Jessica's hand and smashed it onto the floor. The locket instantly shattered into locket fragments that scattered everywhere. I froze for a moment, then turned to leave. But Caleb grabbed my wrist, apologized to Jess. I glared at Caleb defiantly, refusing to lower my head. "Caleb, it was my fault, don't be angry." Jessica covered her face and threw herself into Caleb's arms, sobbing. But what about my swollen face? We have a photo shoot tomorrow. A flicker of tenderness crossed Caleb's eyes. He wanted to wrap his arms around her but realized he was still tightly holding my hand. Maya, I've really spoiled you these past few years. You're completely unreasonable. He was full of rage, and without warning, he forcefully shoved me towards the coffee table. I stumbled a few steps and fell at Jessica's feet, my palm scraping over the locket fragments, leaving a bloodstain on the floor. Caleb looked down at me with disgust, muttering, "Crazy." Then he turned, picked up Jessica, and strode into the bedroom. I lay on the floor, my wrist throbbing with pain. I suddenly remembered the year I first met Caleb. He got into a fight with a group of thugs while racing, and I shielded him, breaking my right wrist. Back then, he also called me crazy, but his eyes were red as he desperately protected me. I had naively thought he would protect me like that forever. Soon, soft whimpering and suppressed gasps came from the bedroom. I was completely cold, feeling as if not just my wrist, but every part of my body was being pierced by thousands of needles. It hurt so much, I wanted to cry out loud. I stumbled back to my apartment and packed my few belongings. Looking at the wedding dress hanging in the corner of the closet, I couldn't help but laugh mockingly. Last month, on my birthday, I had secretly bought this wedding dress because Caleb said he wanted to give me a surprise. I was a few minutes late because of a traffic jam on the way to the restaurant. I happened to overhear him talking with his buddies. "Caleb, Maya doesn't actually think you're going to propose today, right?" Caleb leaned back lazily in the armchair and said casually, "Propose? Her? She's boring in bed. Managing the team and getting sponsorships, sure, she's good at that. Would you marry a housekeeper/manager?" Everyone burst into laughter. "You're right. But after all these years, everyone knows she's crazy in love with you. If she finds out you're not marrying her, she'll probably why her eyes out." Caleb's voice was cold. "Who knows? Getting desperate to settle down. I just casually mentioned a wedding promise, and she stuck to me like glue. From the beginning, she was the one who came on to me, clingy, always telling me what to do. I couldn't help it, she annoyed me too." Someone blurted out, "Caleb, is Jessica back today? I heard she's not going overseas this time." My body trembled. I had been with Caleb for 7 years, and whenever I mentioned Jessica, he would become irritable. He would scold me, saying I couldn't expect him to have never been with other women before me. Because I loved him, I told myself. Everyone has a past. At least he was so devoted back then, that was a plus. I couldn't make a fuss. Now it seemed I was just a fool. The decision to break up was probably made completely that night. The wedding dress I had tried on countless times at the bridal shop before buying. It was a shame I wouldn't get a chance to wear it. I found a pair of scissors and shredded it. After all, if you can't keep something, don't let it be an eyesore. These past few years, I had been with Caleb from the beginning, working hard for his career, but I had neglected myself, not even owning many decent clothes. When my luggage was almost packed, I felt a piece of lingerie under the closet. It couldn't be mine. I thought about it, placed the lingerie on the bed, and sent a picture to Caleb. Soon, Caleb called me. "Maya, I'm so sorry. Those times Caleb said it was inconvenient for you to be at his house, so he took me to the apartment instead. Oh dear, how did I leave my lingerie at your place? I'm so sorry." Jessica's sarcastic voice came from the phone. I rubbed my aching chest and asked coldly, "Do you want it back? If not, I'll throw it in the trash can." But then, I suddenly heard sobbing on the phone. "Maya, blame me if you want, just please don't be angry with Caleb. I really didn't do it on purpose." Just as I was feeling confused, Caleb's voice came through. "Maya, is it really that big a deal? It's just a piece of clothing, you don't have to make a big deal out of it." The phone was abruptly hung up. So, without my knowing, Caleb had been having an affair with Jessica in my apartment. No wonder Caleb always stayed out all night during that time. The next day, I went to the racetrack to deal with my personal belongings. Coincidentally, Caleb and Jessica were also there. They had just come out of the lounge. Jessica's lipstick was smudged, and her face was still flushed. What they had been doing in the room was obvious. As I passed them, Jessica gave me a taunting look. Caleb stepped in front of me, his eyes red. Maya, what are you doing here? Do you know how long Jess cried last night? Why are you so aggressive over a piece of lingerie? You're 25 years old. Why are you still refusing to let it go like a little girl? I looked away from them and walked straight to the office area. While clearing the data on my computer, Caleb angrily threw a contract at me. How many times have I told you not to take on these low-level company ads for me? I picked up the contract from the floor and dusted it off. What? Everyone in the circuit hasn't forgotten your suspension. Do you think a big company would work with you? He froze for a moment, then glanced sideways at me. You knew Jess was back and you're doing this to spite me, aren't you? I laughed and shook my head. Instead of guessing I was using my position for revenge, he should reflect on whether he was worth me risking my reputation as a top assistant. Jessica affectionately linked her arm through Caleb's. Actually, I went with Caleb the day before yesterday to sign a new contract, a luxury endorsement deal from Miller Corporation, something so many people are scrambling for. Oh, I just used my dad's con. Actions a little. My eyes flickered, and I said with a light laugh, really? Congratulations then. Caleb smiled dotingly and pinched Jessica's cheek. With you around, I won't have to worry about anything, he said, then put his arm around Jessica and left. The endorsement for a promising brand I had carefully selected for Caleb, although not well known now, had a great reputation. In the long run, its development would only get better. I chuckled softly and put the contract into a folder. Soon after, David called me to discuss the registration process for the South Bay Rally. Caleb happened to come back to the office. He stood in the doorway, a hint of doubt in his eyes. What event? Who were you just talking to? I calmly explained, just a commercial minor event. Before I finished speaking, Jessica's petulant tone came from outside the door. Caleb left without looking back, watching his figure disappear from view. I suddenly understood that sometimes, a heart can die in just one moment. There was no hysterical outburst, no tearful pleading to stay. Only the calm that comes after complete disappointment. I packed my things and walked through the reception area. 2 or 3 influencers were sitting there. They were there to film videos and generate buzz for Caleb and Jessica as a couple. As my eyes swept over the Miller Corporation representative sitting in the corner, the man in a suit and tie nodded at me. I slowly curled my lips. The endorsement Jessica supposedly snatched? It was just a little present I gave them. I went directly to the manager's office and asked to resign. The manager had just returned from overseas and didn't know what had happened in the past 2 days. He was very surprised. Resign? Even if I agree, Caleb won't let you leave. I smiled. Why not? With Jessica by Caleb's side, she'll definitely be invested in his affairs. Besides, my mind is made up. Hearing Jessica's name, the manager's eyes flickered, and he didn't say anything. I then mentioned the Miller Corporation endorsement, saying it was all Jessica's credit and that the team wouldn't lack funding in the future. The manager finally agreed to my resignation. By the time I got back to my apartment with a box of things, it was already late. When I opened the door, I found the place a mess. Besides me, Caleb also had a key to the apartment. His razor, matching mugs, and slippers that used to be here were all gone. Caleb was reckless and arrogant and never bothered with such childish things. It must have been Jessica. I quickly tidied up and sent a message to the real estate agent, asking him to change the lock as soon as possible. On the way back, I had listed this apartment for sale at the real estate agency. I was dragging my suitcase, ready to stay at a hotel for the night, when Jessica blocked my way as I got out of the elevator lobby. She gave me a smug look and smiled carelessly. Maya, Caleb said you were just a casual fling he hooked up with while I was overseas. Oh, he just loves talking nonsense, don't take it seriously. We grew up together, and I just can't stand his funny and witty mouth. Really? Caleb was a funny and witty person? When he was around me, he was mostly quiet and cold. I thought it was because he was aloof. But it turned out he could use me as a punchline to entertain others. Jessica giggled and flirtatiously tossed her large waves in her hair. I glanced over and froze. On her pale chest, supported by the low-cut bra of her extremely low-cut bra, were scattered bright red hickeys. It was clear how passionate the person who left them was. I tried hard to suppress the sudden nausea in my stomach and walked around her to leave. Jessica instinctively reached out a hand towards me. I heard you grew up in an orphanage. You've been clinging to Caleb these past few years. Aren't you just after his heir to a fortune status? I looked up at her sharply. What do you mean? What heir to a fortune? Jessica glanced at me casually, tisk tisk, and then slowly began to speak. He just came to Baywood back then on a whim to spite his dad. If it weren't for his dad's support, where do you think he got the money to play with race cars? Galaxy Chemical Group? You must have heard of it, right? His dad is the biggest shareholder. Haha, typical of someone who grew up in an orphanage, limited perspective, completely fooled by Caleb. I was filled with disbelief. Back then, Caleb told me that when he was very young, his father kept a mistress who angered his mother to death, and he was abandoned in the family's rural home. He had suffered a lot, living with distant relatives home for years, and came out on his own after graduating high school. He said he had long since cut ties with his father. He also said he was lucky to have met me, giving him someone he could trust completely. I loved him, I pitied him. He easily occupied the softest and most genuine parts of my heart as a woman, making me willing to do anything for him without regret. But what was I hearing now? Jessica's lips were still moving. I was so full of hatred I felt suffocated and just wanted to demand an explanation from Caleb. I reached out to push Jessica away. Unexpectedly, she stepped aside and pulled me along. I tumbled down the porch steps, and my suitcase hit my leg heavily. Jessica stumbled a few steps and hit the corner of the wall. The roar of a race car engine came. Caleb rushed over without waiting for the car to stop. He stepped over my body without hesitation and rushed towards Jessica. Jess, are you okay? Did you hit your head? We need to get you to a doctor right away. Caleb's voice trembled slightly as he picked up Jessica and turned to leave. Jessica leaned in his arms, giving me a smug L. Okay. It wasn't until half an hour later that Caleb remembered me. He sent me a message. Thank God Jess doesn't have a concussion, or you wouldn't have enough lives to pay for it. When I saw the message, I was at the Miller estate. The family doctor was applying medicine to my sprained ankle. David stood by the window, a cold aura radiating from him. If you hadn't saved Grandma from drowning back then, Miller Corporation wouldn't be what it is today. Grandma insisted I come to Baywood ahead of time to make sure you're kept safe. I can't believe Caleb. Maya, are you really sure you want to leave him this time? I looked at David and answered without hesitation, the plan hasn't changed. Caleb's team received an invitation to the South Bay rally. The manager called a meeting for the team members to discuss the upcoming training. At the end of the meeting, Caleb tapped the table and blurted out, Maya, bring me the road book. It turned out he still remembered that the road books I made for him were always the most professional. The team members looked a bit awkward, their gazes shifting between him and Jessica. It was then that Caleb realized he hadn't seen me at all today. Jessica snorted, her face dark, and seemed unhappy. It's just a road book, I can make one too. Is the team useless without Maya? Caleb quickly lowered his head and coaxed her, completely missing the manager saying I had already resigned. On the way to the practice track, Caleb sent a message to his assistant. He instructed the assistant to order flowers and send them to my apartment, and to pick up the road book from me while they were there. In his mind, I was just staying at the apartment, throwing a little tantrum, since I had nowhere else to go. As long as he coaxed me a little, I would get over it. Soon after, the assistant called him back and said I wasn't at the apartment. The locksmith who changed the lock said the apartment had already been listed with a real estate agency. One of his buddies nearby heard this and laughed, patting Caleb's shoulder. Caleb, did Maya run away from home again? I bet she'll be back crying and wanting to make up in less than a week. Caleb sneered and held up 3 fingers. Less than 3 days. But thinking that the assistant said I had listed the apartment for sale this time, he frowned, feeling a vague sense of uneasiness. He took out his phone and found my messaging app account. He saw my profile picture was still the back view of me and him leaning together, drawn by the kids when he accompanied me back to the orphanage that year. Caleb exited the chat window and muttered to himself, "Fine, I'll smooth things over with her in a couple of days." 3 days later, in the early morning, Caleb returned home after a buddy's birthday party. The living room was dark. "Maya, are you asleep? Why aren't the lights on? You know I was coming back tonight." His voice trailed off as he belatedly remembered that I had already moved out. Usually, when he came back late, he would definitely see my figure as soon as he opened the door. Either waiting for him at the door or warming up warm broth/soup for him in the kitchen. Caleb often got a stomach ache when he stayed up late, and drinking half a bowl of warm broth/soup when he returned helped a lot. He furrowed his brow and slumped onto the sofa, exhausted. After a long while, the sound of the door opening echoed. Caleb's eyes lit up, but he saw Jessica walk in, wearing heavy makeup. "We finally didn't have training tonight, and you just had to go celebrate somebody's birthday." Jessica started complaining as soon as she opened her mouth. "I was supposed to take you to see my friends, but you disappeared." Caleb endured the faint ache in his stomach and interrupted Jessica. "Jess, there's rice porridge in the fridge. Go heat it up." Jessica threw off the purse from her wrist. "I'm tired from shopping, I don't feel like eating." She didn't even look at Caleb and walked straight to the bedroom. An inexplicable irritation welled up in Caleb's heart. He took out his phone to send me a message, asking where I was. But his thumb hovered over the send button for a long time. Finally, he deleted the message word by word. He only sent a single warning, "Maya, if you don't come back before the South Bay rally, then don't ever come back." The day before the South Bay rally, several competing teams arrived at the designated hotel. Caleb and Jessica made a high-profile appearance, hand in hand. When the event host conducted pre-race interviews, Caleb had just changed into his racing suit, and Jessica gently adjusted his hair with a tender expression. The host led the camera crew over, her face full of excitement. She told the camera that it was a happy coincidence to catch the ace and his girlfriend being all lovey-dovey. Live comments constantly flashed across the live stream, "Kiss her! Kiss her! The ace and Jess are such a cute couple." Jessica enthusiastically greeted the fans and said she could answer one fan's question randomly on the spot. "I heard you and Caleb were childhood sweethearts, but you broke up. Was it because Maya interfered?" One fan asked directly. Jessica's eyes reddened, and she said vaguely, "I never gave up on love. Maya has always taken good care of Caleb. I hope everyone won't criticize her. She was the one who broke up with Caleb to go overseas." But now she was crying, acting wronged, as if I had really stolen her man. I turned off the live stream video and started studying the historical race data of other teams. An hour later, I found David and quietly instructed him, in the exhibition race later, "Just drive casually, hold back your skill." After all, we were a newly formed team. We should save our strength for the official track. He smiled and ruffled my hair, saying playfully, "Yes, sir." "Maya!" A familiar voice called out. It was Caleb. He seemed to be specifically looking for me. When he saw me, he looked a little excited. He walked over and said, "I knew you'd come. You never miss any of my races. Our team's lounge is right next door. Let's go discuss the strategy again." Caught off guard, he pulled me into the lounge. Jessica saw me and her face fell. "What is she doing here?" Caleb explained, "She knows most of the racers competing tomorrow. We have to win this championship." Jessica glared at me resentfully, muttering she's like a ghost under her breath. She then held out the race data she had collected to me. Seeing I didn't take it, Caleb pushed me slightly and said in a low voice, "Analyze it quickly. There's still time to make adjustments." His words implied that it was only natural for me to do these things. I curled my lips and pointed at the team emblem on my clothes. "Look closely. I'm not a member of your team anymore. Let me introduce myself. I'm the manager of the Flying Eagle Racing Club." Caleb seemed to just notice. He leaned closer, carefully looking at the team emblem, and murmured, "No way. Since when did you become the manager of another team? Maya, stop messing around." No one in all of Baywood has heard of this team. You're trying to trick me, right? Caleb's face changed repeatedly. He pulled me into a corner, his eyes swirling with emotion. Or are you saying you'd rather manage a racer who's never been on a professional track just to leave me? He didn't know David, thinking I was just acting out of spite by managing an unknown racer. I looked at him calmly. What do you think? His eyebrows furrowed, and he roared angrily, "Don't you dare regret this." I laughed carelessly and turned to leave. Caleb's roar attracted many people's attention. The crowd whispered, "Isn't that Caleb's assistant?" From what Jess said, it sounds like Maya interfered in her relationship with Caleb. Looks like she got fired. Tisk tisk, she's still clinging to Caleb, isn't she? How pathetic. I didn't bother to explain. Just then, I saw David returning from giving an interview, striding towards me. He put his arm around my shoulder and made a phone call. "Any riffraff can just wander into the lounge now? Get over here and clear the area. You won't hear that garbage again." David released my shoulder and looked down into my eyes. "You won't see those people again." My heart contracted sharply, and it took a long time to recover. All these years, I was always the one covering for Caleb. Having someone support you felt like a forgotten luxury. My eyes suddenly welled up. David smiled and said I looked ugly with my mouth pursed. Caleb watched me crying and laughing in front of David, unconsciously staring. To the side, Jessica also looked over, a resentful look in her eyes. In the exhibition race that followed, David only finished 5th because he was hiding his skill. Caleb reached the finish line first, took off his helmet, and Jessica kissed him. The crowd erupted in cheers and screams. The media and audience watching the live stream witnessed their love. That night, Caleb sent me a message, mocking David and saying he wasn't qualified to race against him. He said only he could give me the glory of being a champion. I deleted all his messages. I really didn't know where Caleb got his confidence. David studied overseas after graduating high school. After returned home, he kept a low profile, managing a small department under the Miller Corporation Group. Others thought he was just a distant relative of the Miller Corporation Group CEO. He loved race cars, but his status as the heir to Miller Corporation Group didn't allow him to compete. If he had competed as a professional racer in the country, Caleb wouldn't have had a chance to win the championship. On the day of the race, Caleb was waiting for me at the entrance of the hotel we were staying at. He demanded to know why I wasn't answering his phone or replying to his messages. "Maya, you've always been my good luck charm. This race is very important to me, please come back." Changed his tone, he lowered his demeanor and pleaded with me. This was just his usual method of emotional manipulation. I sneered, "It's just an unofficial event, is it really that important? Or is the ace feeling nervous?" "No, the contract." He stopped just before the words came out. "Jess just joined the team after all. With you here, I'd feel more at ease. I've been feeling uneasy all morning. Maya, please." He reached out to take my hand like before. I stepped back, avoiding him. "Your good luck charm, Jessica, is waiting for you up ahead." I pointed to Jessica not far away. Caleb quickly turned and walked away, talking quietly with Jessica. None of that mattered to me anymore. What I was most looking forward to was the upcoming race. A race that would bring Caleb down from his pedestal. I found my teammates at the grandstand. There was a hot drink on my seat. "Maya, David said you weren't feeling well, so he specially got this for you." It was hot tea. David ran to the convenience store early this morning? It was to buy me hot tea? Holding the warm mug, I couldn't help but curl my lips. The roar of the engine came from the distance. The support crew for all the teams was ready at the segment finish line. This rally race was about to be decided. David's silver car was the first to come into view, with Caleb right behind him. They only needed to pass one more corner to reach the finish line. David's driving skill was steady, I had confidence in him. But Caleb was reckless, he definitely wouldn't be satisfied and would choose to accelerate aggressively. The distance was getting shorter, he had no chance to overtake David anymore. The accident happened in an instant. Caleb's race car lost control while taking the corner out of the track, rolled several times, and started smoking heavily. When the rescue crew carried Caleb out, I saw his right leg dangling at an awkward angle. It's all my fault. If I hadn't given the wrong call for the corner speed, the championship would have been yours. Jessica grabbed his hand, her voice low. Caleb pursed his lips, ultimately saying nothing. At this moment, he was devastated. Losing the championship meant also losing the luxury endorsement deal from Miller Corporation. Because the contract Jessica had signed for him had a clause requiring Caleb to win the South Bay Rally. Otherwise, it would be a breach of contract, and he would have to pay a large penalty. Caleb knew in advance that the competing teams were either amateur racers or newly formed teams. He agreed to the clause without hesitation, not even stopping to think why he had to win such an unofficial event. David won the championship. When he invited me onto the podium, an ambulance carrying Caleb was driving towards a nearby hospital. Caleb's right leg was severely injured and had to be amputated to save his life. While he was still in the hospital, a video went viral online. In the video, Caleb was driving his race car, kept accelerating as he approached the final corner. His navigator, Jessica, was urging him on, faster, faster, and had even turned off the team radio. When the car out of the track and headed straight towards the hillside. In the video, you could only see Jessica's crazy laughter. She looked at Caleb, her eyes filled with endless hatred. If it weren't for you, Mark wouldn't have become someone else's navigator, and he wouldn't have died in that car accident. Caleb. Go to hell. Go to hell. Mark was Jessica's boyfriend and a navigator at a racing club overseas. Jessica had broken up with Caleb and gone overseas back then because of Mark. Unfortunately, before they got engaged, Mark's partner racer was reported by Caleb for race fixing, which led to Mark having to temporarily serve as another racer's navigator and dying in a car accident. Jessica's return home to approach Caleb was solely for revenge. She planned to have Caleb die on the racetrack where he was most proud. Actually, even without Jessica adding fuel to the fire, Caleb would have signed that contract from Miller Corporation Group. On the racetrack, he couldn't beat David, and he would also have to bear massive debt. I wanted him to lose everything he was proud of, to become the miserable state he fabricated when we first met. Unexpectedly, Jessica's appearance made these things happen sooner. 2 months later, at the Miller Corporation Group Anniversary Gala, David officially took over Miller Corporation Group as the heir. He announced the establishment of the Flying Eagle Racing Club and put me in charge of managing it. That day, Caleb impersonated a media reporter and found me, limping. He said he was crippled for life, that the lies he told me back then became a self-fulfilling prophecy, and he really was abandoned by his father. He offered an apology, saying he was foolish and didn't cherish me properly. He slammed his crutch hard against his right leg, crying and begging me to come back to him. I coldly watched his performance. Caleb, you think too highly of yourself. You and I, we finished long ago. Hearing my calm words, the rest of his sentence got stuck in his throat, and his face flushed red. The security guard noticed Caleb's unusual behavior and escorted out of the ballroom. I was busy with the racing club's work. The next time I heard about Caleb was in a local gossip news report. A former racer who retired due to injury is suspected of attempted poisoning of his ex-girlfriend and died by suicide. Caleb was heartbroken and defeated, spending his days drinking heavily to drown his sorrows. On Mark's death anniversary, Caleb pretended to apologize and took the opportunity to put an unknown poison in Jessica's juice. By the time Jessica realized something was wrong and called for help, it was too late. Jessica became a vegetative state. Caleb jumped from a tall building. I found myself sighing with sorrow. I guess that's what goes around comes around. Ms. Shin, come here for a photo. The young racer holding the champion trophy waved at me. I closed the news page and strode forward.